But tonight we have Filippa Guarna with us from Media Master Coach. So thank you so much, Filippa, for joining us this evening. And we are talking all things media for motorsport. But before we get into that, Filippa, how did you get into media in motorsport?
Oh, it's a really long story. So I've been in media for 22 years now. I started straight out of high school, started in radio broadcasting. So I used to work in production, then I moved to be a radio DJ, traffic reporter, breakfast announcer, out where you are, Rochelle, out in Campbelltown, after I'd done my sojourn around the country. And it wasn't until I came back to Sydney in 2000, I was working at that Campbelltown radio station not far from Oran Park. The old Oran Park. And that's where I started to meet a lot more motorsport-centric people out in that area. There was, Wazza Luff and Barton Moore and Michael Caruso and all those sorts of guys were just starting off and going through the development series and the youths and things like that. And because I was on radio and I've always loved motorsport, I've grown up around it, I started talking more about it. My listeners wanted to hear more about it, but there wasn't many chicks talking about motorsport or reporting on it. So there were opportunities through my networking that I got to know the guys at Auto Action, and I started my print journalism career. My first articles were from the Indy 500 in 2006. I actually went to the US on a family holiday and at the same time did a couple of articles from there, and so started my journo career. So I was writing for Auto Action, I was working for Motor and Wheels and Street Machine and all those sorts of mags. And because I was focusing on the supercars and the national series, I got to know everyone in pit lane, the mechanics, the drivers, the team managers. And then I moved into television. So I was associate producer at Supercars for 3 years. So I was looking after the main broadcast, all the support categories, definitely Bathurst, that was back then it was only 3 days live, but you had headphones on for the full 3 days and you're running around chasing drivers and things were live the whole time. So that was pretty hectic. And then I moved into social media for the Holden Racing team back in 2012. So that was around the era when we had PR and communications managers at teams, but no one was doing dedicated stuff for social media, and it was just gaining momentum. So I was the first dedicated social media manager in pit lane when I looked after the Holden Racing team and HSV. And after doing that for 12 months and, changing the face of how we did media content for motorsport, I then decided I want to go out on my own. So created a production agency, and I did the off-road championship for 5 years and other private events and automotive events. And then I moved overseas. So, but it's always had a motorsport or automotive flavor. I've been in the Middle East since end of 2014. And, I'm still comms manager of Formula 4 UAE. I'm media delegate also for the Golf 12 Hours. I did the Indy 500 with Pertec Team Murray back in 2016 at the 100th running. So all I've ever done has been motorsport since I finished my radio. And it's something that I grew up in. I'm a Holden girl. I grew up in a Holden family. I've still got my grandpa's 74 HQ1 tonner in the garage. That's my baby, my pride and joy. My dad used to race clubbies at the old Amaroo Park in Sydney as well before I was born. So it's always been part of my life, but I never really made a conscious decision to do it until I started hanging around more people in motorsport. And it was quite a lonely road for a while because there was no other chicks doing what I was doing back then. Now it's so great to have, female as in motorsport communities. All we really had back then was, the WAMS committee, which I was on for a number of years. Other than that, there really wasn't that much support. So to see it grow over the last 2 decades has been really impressive. And I'm just so thankful that my work has taken me all over the world. And I think with all of that experience coming back to Australia now because of COVID and wanting to be near family and be safe, I really wanted to reinvent myself. And that's where I started the Media Academy and Media Master Coach, because when you're working with so many different drivers, a lot of people are scared of the media. They don't know how to approach the media. They don't know how to use the media for benefit, to promote your careers, to build relationships. And if only you knew the secrets, that it's not so scary and there's so much that you can actually benefit from it, you'll be able to get ahead of your rivals in your competition. And that's why I created Media Master Coach, because there's so much that I just want to be able to pass on, particularly to the Formula 4 kids. I've worked for 5 years now in F4 UAE and seeing these 15, 16, 17-year-olds, starting their careers with so much ahead of them, and they all want to go to Formula 1. They're so not prepared to be there because they haven't had access to that information. So having done radio and print and TV and comms management and social media and now coaching, bringing all that together and teaching what I love, which is media and motorsport together. That's pretty much my journey in a couple of minutes. So I've done quite a bit, but I'm grateful that I have. So I've got that breadth of knowledge and experience to be able to provide a more comprehensive education platform for anyone in motorsport, no matter what discipline.
Wow, we're definitely lucky to have you as part of the Race Chicks community. So thank you for that. But when we talk about media, we're not just talking interviews, are we? There's a whole gamut involved in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in years gone by, when you say, oh, I want media coaching, people just focus on, well, how do I do interviews? But media is so important. You know, the media can make or break your career now. You know, if you play it right, you can be a hero. If you play it wrong, then you've got to work so hard to gain back that reputation that you've built. How many days do you see on the news athletes going crazy and doing the wrong things and getting in the headlines for all the wrong reasons? And, you know, that crisis management or crisis avoidance is part of that as well, because once your profile is tarnished, you lose the ability to promote yourself, obviously. You affect your ability to have sponsors. You're tarnishing the reputation of your team, your category, your sport as well. So there's so much that can be affected just by being in the headlines for the wrong reasons. So you've got to learn the right media mindset. You've got to understand how the media industry works, how you can benefit from it, you know, how to play it positively, how to win and retain fans and sponsors. All of that in some way is connected to the media industry, because everyone's got one of these. Everyone's going to take photos of you, take videos of you, and whether you go viral for the good or bad reasons, media plays a massive role in sport. So yeah, when I do my coaching, it's not just about how to play an interview right. You've got your social media to manage, you've got your brand, your profile to manage, and understanding how you fit in the bigger gamut of sport in general.
Yep. So for a race chick, and it's, you know, doesn't matter the genre, I guess, or our involvement, where should we start our thinking? What's that first step in terms of, you know, where should we focus our energy and our efforts on?
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that media itself is just as much a competition as competing on the track, if you're going to talk from a competitor point of view, because you've got limited journos, you've got limited space in newspapers, you've got limited ability to do coverage on websites. You are fighting for exposure. So you have to always think about, how can you do things different? How can you get in front of the right people to be able to promote you? Because you can't expect a journalist, a TV producer, a radio announcer, a commentator to come and chase after you. When you look at an event like Bathurst, where you've got hundreds and hundreds of drivers, do you think that the press have got time to go and see every driver on the track to go find information? So it's like that old quote, the squeaky wheel gets the good oil. You make enough noise and you do enough good stuff out there to get the attention of other people, then you're going to be at the forefront of people's minds. So when they do want to write a story or need to fill column inches or put content on their websites, then they're going to think about you. So you really have to have this mindset of being proactive. You've got to build relationships with the right people that can open up doors for you and create content for you. And you've also got to think a little bit differently, because if you're competing against every other competitor for exposure, how are you going to do things differently? Because if you're going to create the same content on social media that every other person in your category is doing it, how are you going to stand out? You've got to find a way to create content different. So I always teach drivers, look at your competition, see what other people are doing and do it differently. Find a different twist. So that's the main way to start approaching the whole media gamut, is how do you fit in, but then how do you stand out? You've got to do things differently, and you've got to start talking to people. You can't be shy, because if you want to be a professional racing driver and you want to be out there and be on telly and get all this media coverage online, you have to talk to people. And so many times people are really scared to talk to a journalist or talk to a photographer or talk to a media manager of the category that they're racing in. But so many of these people in these positions are there to actually help boost your profile. So make them work for it. It's their job.
And it's also applicable for that grassroots level as well, though, isn't it? Because
yes,
yeah, because as you say, there's a phone, there's social media, there's there's sponsors at that, even at the grassroots level. So it's applicable in that early stages as well.
Yeah, and that's like Belinda was saying in her live Q&A with you, there's different types of sponsorship that you can get. You can chase after money, you can chase after products, you can chase after services. But even if you're a go-karter and you're like 11 or 12 years old, you can still be able to get support from your local community. But it's having that courage to go and firstly, obviously what she was teaching was look at your brand and look how you want to be represented and who you want to associate with, and then find companies that align with you. But you're going to have to go after that, because no one's going to come knocking on your door unless you are winning every race and you've got this amazing personality and you're always in the press for other reasons. Then you might get sponsors knocking on your door. If you're going to be as successful as Scotty McLaughlin, of course people are going to come knock on your door. But when you're first starting out, you're going to have all your ducks lined up in a row and not be scared to approach people. And so, yeah, you do have to start building those relationships and getting to know people, no matter whether you're an 11, 10-year-old go-karter or whether you're in your 20s or 30s just doing production cars or drifting or motorcarna or whatever it is. You have to actually talk to people to open up opportunities.
Those dreaded interviews, yes.
It might sound really basic, but it's keeping things simple. These are the things that actually work. And these are the things that I wish more of, the competitors that were in my championships would do. A couple of years ago, I had a couple of Formula 4 kids in the Middle East. They didn't even say hello to me until round 3. Now, I'm a media manager of a category. I work with the FIA on their motorsport publications for news. I send press releases to Motorsport.com as a media partner of ours, Autosport. I send press releases out all the time. And these kids hadn't even come and talked to me or told me their story. So when they came and approached me and asked for me to help them with some interview training, I called them the wrong name by accident. And they got really irritated. They're like, why are you calling me John? My name's Jack. And why is Jack being called John? I said, well, how do I know who you are if you don't even come and talk to me? You're lucky that I'm a good media manager and I've done my research already before you've come and said hello. But if you don't go say hello to the people that are working in the category with you, how can they understand who you are, find your unique angle, and incorporate your story into the press releases that category is putting out every weekend? So that just shows how important it is just to talk, even if it's just with the people in the category that you're competing in. Start asking the questions. What content do you want from me? What can I create that'll help make your job easier? What information do you want from me that I can give you? Who are the local journalists that I need to go and reach out to and start a conversation with? Are there any local radio stations I should be offering my information to do some live interviews? Who are the photographers in pit lane? I can tell you now that Mark Webber still remembers all of the photographers that were taking his photo when he was back here in Australia, because I've seen it, whether he's doing WEC or Porsche or whatever it is. He still remembers the people that were at the beginning taking photos and writing stories about him in the beginning of his career. So if you get to know the people in pit lane that are in that position of media, then those strong relationships will just be so beneficial in the long run. And it helps you create really good habits as well, because it gets you out of your comfort zone, you're introducing yourself. And if you're in the beginning of your career, let's just say you're a 10 to 15-year-old doing grassroots go-karts here in Australia, whether it's regional or if it's state, or even if you're trying to do some world go-kart championships. Every season, you're most likely, if you're wanting to be professional, jumping from category to category or class to class. So you're always going to be meeting new people that don't know who you are. So you've got to get into the habit of always introducing yourself, always finding who the key people are, getting their email addresses, adding them to your press release sends. It's not until you get to F1 and you stay in F1 for 10 years, can you rest on your laurels, because people know who you are. But until then, you've actually got to fight for it, and you've got to do your research and get to know everyone at different category levels. And that's amazing, because you never know when you move forward that someone that you had worked with or had been a media manager of a category when you were back in your teens might now be working at the FIA or might then be working at Formula 1. It's a very small industry and it's a very small circle. So you've always got to just build those relationships and hopefully one day it'll pay off. But yeah, you've got to be proactive and get out there no matter how young or old you are.
And so one thing, we've learned from other Q&As that we've done, it's all about the lead up and preparation. It's never, it's not just magic doesn't happen on the day.
Yeah.
And this would be the same thing, wouldn't it? It would be, there's a lot of prep work and a lot of things to do, in the lead up to events. And even now, it's kind of the off season to a certain extent. Yeah. What kind of things should everyone be doing now?
There's lots of different areas. So you've got your social media. I mean, the main things that people come to you for asking about media is, how do I get my social media right? And what content should I be doing? And how do I do my interviews? How do I prepare my answers? What do I say? What are you going to ask me? I can't say, how many times are you going to ask me, Phil? It's like, well, it doesn't matter what I'm going to ask you. You are the best person to talk about you because it's you. So you should easily know how to speak about yourself, but people get stage fright. So in the off season, it's always good to start working out what your story is. So if you're looking at the basics, if you're a professional competitor, you're always going to be asked, so tell me about yourself. Where have you come from? What have you raced? Where have you been? What championships have you competed in? And why you love it? Why do you love your motorsport? You're always going to be asked why. If you can't answer those basic questions, then that's a real flagfall for you, because you are the best person to be able to answer those. It's not like you're talking about politics or race strategy or engineering. You know who you are and why you're doing this. So one of the things I start with particularly with my go-karters, because they're so young and they're so intimidated about what to say, I get them to write down their answers. So the old, the basis of journalism, when you're writing, whether it's press releases or doing feature stories or news, who, what, why, when, where, how. So who are you? What have you done? How long have you been competing for? Where have you been competing for? What have you competed in and why? They're the basic questions that you're always going to be asked in general interviews about you. You can always extend, later on about, talk about your race, how was qualifying, what happened during the race, talk about your rivals, what are your ambitions, where do you want to take your career, that sort of extra stuff. But you can always work on the basics about you, because if you're going to be professional racing car driver, you're going to talk about yourself a lot. So you're better off getting your story straight. The other thing is with social media. There's some basics, and I was talking to you about that today. I'm going to provide a PDF document for everyone about some key tips and some basic plans and some content you can integrate in your motorsport career. But when you're talking about social media, go and have a look. Study other people, study categories, study the Australian Rally Championship, study Supercars, study Formula One, NASCAR, IndyCar. Let's see what the big boys do, because there's a reason that they do their social media that way. It's because it's successful and it's engaging, right? So go and get some inspiration about what you want to do. And then before you start competing next season, is decide what you want to commit to. It doesn't matter what your social media plan is, just have a plan. Decide, do I want to do press releases? Do I want to have photos taken of me? Do I want to create video content? You've got to decide, because some people don't have the budget. People don't have enough money to go and get a videographer to follow you around or have a media manager, but you can still do engaging content on your social media channels and your website, even if you don't have that guidance. But it's just deciding what you're going to do and be consistent with it, because a lot of people try different stuff that doesn't work or isn't on brand with them because it's out of their comfort zone. So start with the things that you think that you would be comfortable creating for your social media, and put a plan in place. So work out what you want to do pre-event, what you're going to do during the event, and what you're going to do post-event as well, because you don't want to have nothing after an event and it go quiet until the next event. You want to make sure that you're doing a consistent post. So look at the frequency of other Facebook pages of the big motorsport categories, look at the types of content, see what resonates with you, and then bounce some ideas with someone. I mean, I'm happy to chat with anyone if they need a bit of guidance about what to do with their media strategy for next year. But that's from a content planning point of view. And then you also then need to think about, well, what channels am I going to set up? So do you want a website? Do you want Facebook? Do you want Instagram? Do you want Twitter? Do you want Snapchat? Which ones do you want? But work out what you're most comfortable, because the last thing you want to do is promise all of your fans, all of your followers, you're going to do all these updates on 6 different channels, and then you get really overwhelmed with it as well. So start small, start with what you're most comfortable with, But use the time between now and whenever you start competing, whether it's February, March, just look what other people are doing and get some ideas and start making a plan.
And I think too, even setting up as Indra said there in the chat, is having that page, a Facebook page, or your Instagram, but definitely having a Facebook page if you're not at the website stage, in having that athlete page so that you can add content and
and it's really important to keep it separate. So have your own Facebook account, your own private account, but then you have to have an athlete page, because and you got to think about this. But as a category media manager, if I'm dealing with competitors that are under 18, I never like tagging your kids. I've been like from a working with children perspective as well, but also to say, let's take supercars for example. Scott McLaughlin's got his private Facebook page, which doesn't actually say Scott McLaughlin. But then he's got his Scott McLaughlin public page, because when you become really popular, you don't want the whole world to add you 16,000 friend requests, because it's too overwhelming, and you want to keep some things private for yourself. So it doesn't matter whether you're underage or not, it's always good to separate the two. But even then, and this is what I've had to give advice to a number of girls that I've worked with in the past in open wheelers, when you have a private Facebook page, please keep the posts private. I don't want to see all of your photo albums with you going out with your girlfriends to someone's 18th or someone's 21st, and you've got a short dress and you've got drinks in your hand and you look like you're drunk or you're about to fall over, and everyone can see that. If you're going to be a professional athlete or a racing car driver, everything that's on the internet's published can be found if it's public. So you've got to be really careful about that persona that you're putting out there. You can have your private life, but keep it private. And so I've had a number of girls come through with my championships when I've gone and check all of my competitors' Facebook pages, no matter whether they're boys or girls, and just check what they've done. And I think anything is a little bit untoward from what our category sponsors might want to associate, I just give them a little quiet chit chat. Can you please go and make all of your posts private, because it'll be best for you in the long run. Otherwise, people are going to automatically judge you based on what they see. Even if you could be the best racer in the world, if they see that you're a different persona that doesn't match their brand, they don't want to be associated with you. So yes, always keep them separate. But then on your public athlete page, you can always incorporate a little bit of personal content if you want to show your personality, whether it's a family thing or a dog thing or a kid thing or a holiday stuff or a hobby or whatever it is. You've got to integrate some personality into your public page, but try to keep your private stuff private, because you really don't want to create headaches or pigeonhole yourself too much, where you could be open to so many other opportunities if you just maintain the one persona on your public page.
Yeah. And I like it when there's people have pages, because it makes it easier to share content. Like, I never feel comfortable sharing people's personal content.
And I don't like tagging racing drivers. I mean, even if they want to, I always just tag in pages. I will never tag someone's personal Facebook profile into a post if I have to. So, and that's just being from a professional point of view, because you got to give them the right, whether people, if they want to be found or not, but I just go with the rule of thumb that I just assume all racing car drivers want to keep their private accounts private. If you want to have a public persona, create an athlete page or a racing team page that can be tagged, and let's just keep them separate. There's less confusion that way.
So Laura's asked a good question. Would you recommend having an athlete page separate to your racing team page also, or does that spread things too thin?
Oh, it depends how far you are with your career as well, and it's like, do you have personal sponsors that you need to look after in addition to the racing team? It depends. I mean, if you have your own racing team and you're going to be Laura Burns Motorsport, then you're effectively, that's you anyway, unless you've really got a strategy as to why you want a personal page as well as a team page. It might get confusing in the beginning because you're doing double content, and that can actually add a lot more pressure to create different content for the different pages, because you really have to have a reason why do you want to separate them, or why do you want to have an additional one for you.
And it kind of leads into a good question that Tanisha said in was guidelines on what needs to be personal versus public information in the motorsport industry.
It comes down to personal preference, really. You have to decide what you're comfortable sharing. If you don't want people to know about certain things about you, then don't share it. If you're happy to share content about your family or your interests or your partner or anything like that, then that's fine. But you have to be comfortable with it. And it's the same thing with, you know, working on your brand and the sponsors that you want to align with. You know, one of the things that always comes up with females in motorsport is it okay to go do a photo shoot in lingerie, or should I just keep my racing suit on, or should I keep it in a team? Now, there's no right or wrong. You can do whatever you want, just like there are opportunities to be a professional female in media, or a professional as a mechanic, or a professional in administration or in officials. You can be professional being a grid girl if you want. You can run a modeling agency that's also part of, I know a number of girls that have been, you know, grid girls in the past and now run really successful modeling agencies that provide the promo girls. But you have to be comfortable with the decision that you make, because you're the one that has to make it and you're the one that has to live with it. So it doesn't matter whether you want to go the lingerie shoot, or whether you want to go the suit route, or if you want to go more a sporty look. Whatever you are comfortable with, you're going to have to stick with, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to be in the limelight. People are going to judge you. They're going to make assumptions about you. So as long as you can defend yourself and you're proud and you're doing what you love doing, well, then, you know, people can't really tell you otherwise. But you have to be comfortable with the decision and follow through with it. You can't keep chopping and changing, or feel like you're pressured into doing something that you didn't want to because you made the decision in the first place.
I think that definitely leads into the positive and the negative aspects of media exposure then.
Yeah, and we're always surrounded by it. Unfortunately, you know, it doesn't matter how many years, whether you're on the WAMS committee, whether you work for the FIA, whether you're an official, whether you're a race director, doesn't matter what role you do in motorsport. It's just one of these things where people are always going to judge you. I remember when I first started at Auto Action, you know, I was judged by being a female. They're like, well, what are your motivations for working in motorsport? And I'm saying, well, I love the sport. I want to be a journalist. I want to be the best female journalist there possibly is in supercars. So, I mean, even then, people are going to ask about your motivations and why you're there. So I knew why I was working in motorsport, because I loved it. I grew up with it. I had so many friends in the industry. Thankfully, I'm not doing any racing and I do want to have the pressure of being behind the wheel, because I just know that, you know, girls particularly that are racing car drivers have so much extra pressure to perform and to be successful and to put in extra effort, whether it's from a physical point of view, from a mental point of view, from a brand point of view. Be extra careful. It's just one of those things. The industry is like that. You're not really going to change much. I thought when I was at WAMS, you might be able to make some headway and make some progress in the industry. But, you know, as long as we're helping one or two women, you know, every year to try to, you know, give them opportunities and educate and inform, then that's the most that we can do to make sure that we're all as successful as possible and can support each other.
Yep, fantastic. So so there'd be expectations as from a competitor perspective in terms of what the media would expect from us, I guess, like in regards to being prepared and knowing our story.
Yeah, you do. The media does expect you to be able to do interviews and to give more than just one word answers, but be proactive as well. Be willing to engage with the press, come up with new story ideas, work with category managers to be able to promote yourself. You can't just expect that the journalists and the press is going to come after you. You've got to be willing to provide information as well. Like, one of the things I teach a lot is creating a media kit. And a lot of people don't put something together, but if you had your biography, you had press images, you had your headshots ready, you had maybe a Q&A written, you had all your results and, you know, your history of competition. If you had that ready to go, just in case someone asked you about you, you could go, hey, I've got my media kit. Can I give it to you? It's got all the information that you need. All my bio stuff. I'd love to be able to work with you on a story or a feature. Can I talk to you more about, you know, my reason for being in motorsport, my family story? Having information ready is something that is so integral. When I was working with a young girl a couple of months ago, pardon me, from South Africa, she's only 11. And she went to the FIA Rising Stars Girls on Track program over at Paul Ricard. And one of the really important things that I did with her was create her media kit. Because when she got there, I said, you're going to the other side of the world. You're meeting with the FIA, you're meeting with TV directors, you're meeting with press that are coming to do a story on you. You never know who you're going to run into, whether it's press, potential sponsors, anybody. If you've got that media kit ready to go, you can email it today and it's relevant. If you have to wait a week or 2 weeks to put that together, you're going to be forgotten and they're going to go with somebody else. So you've got to have that information ready to go. Just be willing to work with the journalists. When journalists want to talk to you, or when they want to write a story about you, they want to do it now. They don't want to wait for 6 months. So you've got to, strike while the iron's hot. And also the media does expect you to build relationships with them. Like I said before, get to know journalists' names, get to know photographers' names. I think a lot of journalists are seen as being scary. And I think when I first started in the Supercars Media Centre, all of the old written journalists, from Auto Action or the Sun Herald or Sydney Morning Herald or whatever it was quite scary actually for me. I was only in my early 20s when I first worked in the Media Centre myself. But I think there's that old school mentality of, I don't know what the press are going to write about me. But if you get to know the journalists and you see people like Craig Lowndes, who's got like really great relationships with lots of different journalists, TV producers, reporters, it's by building those relationships that doors open for you to be able to have extra coverage and extra media exposure that would be valuable to you, your team and your sponsors.
So getting those professional headshots done over the holiday break is to be on the to-do list.
Yeah, and as part of a media kit, when you're putting some photos together, it's weird as you get older. Like if you're young now, you've got access to HD and really good photos. If I'm in my 40s now and I look at photos I took of myself when I was a kid and it's the old Polaroids or really horrible quality. So I think young racers these days have a lot more ability to have really good quality images, but it is important to have photos at the ready of what you're doing now, what you've done in the last 12 months, maybe some key championship wins if you've won something, or some key milestones in your motorsport career that could be part of a feature story on you. And yes, definitely a current headshot, whether that's in a racing suit or a team uniform, with you smiling and not with a hat on where you can't see your eyes. You want to be able to see you as a person. So having all of that content ready is really important for it to be current.
Okay. And one thing I noticed that you've said this to me previously, is no sunglasses in interviews.
Yes. Yeah. It's a bugbear for me. When I was producing at Supercars, I would never interview any driver with sunglasses on. You got to imagine, if I haven't got my sunglasses, I can't reach at it. But if you've got sunglasses on, you've got a barrier between you and the person that's watching you, between the audience. And it's really important to engage with everyone. When you're having a conversation with someone, it is so important to look people in the eye. But if you've got sunglasses on, there you go, Jenny. She's got her sunglasses on. See, I can't see you. I can't connect with you. I can't see your emotions. I can't see where you're looking. I can't see whether under those sunglasses, if you're looking at somebody else or you're actually paying attention to me. And it's almost like having sunglasses on is very casual. It's very holiday-ish. It's very too cool for school. And you don't want to have that arrogant air about you come across as well. So I will never interview a racing driver with sunglasses, and never take photos for headshots, etc., with sunglasses on, because it just creates that barrier between the audience, your potential followers, your potential fans, and you yourself. So if you do, even if it is sunny and it's horrible outside, I know what it's like being on camera and having to look into the sun. Try to work with the person that's interviewing you if you are on camera, just to shuffle a little bit so you're not looking directly into the sun, but always take your sunnies off. It's just way more personable and more engaging for you to be able to connect with the audience without them on.
Oh, very good. I know when I did the ABC interview, they had me sitting right in the sun, and I honestly thought I was going to look like a pirate because I couldn't open one of my eyes.
Yeah,
I was just standing right in the sun, and I was dreading what it was going to look like and come across like on camera, because I felt like I was doing this the whole time. But yeah, definitely as bad as what I had in my head.
Yeah, a really good technique that we use in television, that if you do have to look towards the sun, close your eyes, look up at the sun wherever it is, and just keep your eyes closed for maybe like 10 seconds to get accustomed to that brightness. And then when you open your eyes again and look at the camera, it's not as harsh to see.
Ah.
I've had to do hosting, particularly my early years for like Aussie racing cars. But I remember at Bathurst, I had to do my piece to camera for the beginning of the program with the map panorama sign behind me, and the direction that I was looking to have that shot was right into the sun, and it would, my eyes were watering, they were running. It was the most uncomfortable thing, but you just have to suck it up, unfortunately. If you can move around and be having a little bit of adjustment, then go for it. But yeah, no sunglasses, because it's just not personable.
So that, oh yes, and definitely Cassie, don't be afraid of us photographers. I like it. Come and say hi. So that would, like the no sunglasses is part of how to attract fans and being personable and how to attract fans and sponsors through media.
Yeah, you've got to look at your whole, I mean, Belinda was talking about the whole brand aspect, you know, how you appear and how you behave and how you interact with others, how you compete. All of that affects who you are and can affect how you're seen in the public eye. So you've got to imagine as well, like whether it's about your appearance, whether it's your attitude, whether it's your actions. Like I said, people have got phones. There's not just photographers, not just TV producers, there's fans. Anyone can take a photo of you and you've got the wrong uniform on, or you've got the wrong sponsors on the wrong shirt, or you're chucking a dummy spit because you're really unhappy about a race result that you've got, or you're having blue with a competitor. You know, all of that affects your relationship with both your fans and your sponsors. So it's really important to be on top of your game with all of it, because with your appearance, you can have photos and videos taken of you, how you behave, if you're caught on camera when you least expect it, you know, how are you behave? You've got to be on all the time, because you don't know who you're running into. You don't know who's watching you. You don't know who's filming you or recording you. And when you just say you're in the not just supercars, you could be in TCM, you could be in a youth category, you could be in a production cars or a Mazda MX-5, doesn't matter who you are. There's so many eyeballs on you. People love being at the track and engaging with racing car drivers and having fans. So you don't know who you're meeting. You might meet, you know, a lovely lady one day and she might be the wife of the CEO of Weet-Bix or the CEO of Coca-Cola. So you can't judge people. You've always got to be on, and you can't afford to be behaving badly in the public eye, because whether it's someone taking a photo of you or a video, or you going viral on Instagram or professional photographer, or there's always camera operators around the track. You know, having worked at Supercars Television, I can tell you they've got long lenses. They'll be able to catch you on camera doing something. So you can't afford to rest on your laurels when you're out in the public eye, or even if you're at an event and you're going for dinner. Always be on your best behavior. Always wear your uniform neatly. You know, how do you want people to perceive you? Do you want to be scruffy and don't care about your career and don't care about your sport and don't care about your sponsors, or do you take pride in what you're doing and the people that you're associated with? So yeah, it's how to attract, win and retain fans and sponsors by always looking at all of those aspects, from your attitude to how you behave and to how you appear. Because if you want to be professional and you want to have those professional companies associated with you, then there's that expectation to behave in that particular way. There's no room for cowboys.
Now, Linda sent a question through is, in terms of journalists, who should she suck up to? Well, this comes back to the building relationships, doesn't it? But yeah, so who should we build relationships with?
Firstly, it's really important. It doesn't matter what category you're competing in. Hopefully, you have a category manager, if not category manager and a category media manager. And they're your first point of call, because if you're a media manager of a category, you not only know all the competitors and all the sponsors related to that category, but you know the local press. Doesn't matter whether I'm doing Formula 4 UAE in the Middle East, if I'm doing the Australian Off-Road Championship, when we're going to all remote areas all around Australia. We know local radio stations, we know the local newspapers, we know the journalists that are at Auto Action, Motorsport.com, Speed Cafe. So as a category media manager, I'd be more than happy to be able to pass on advice about who to start building relationships with. If the category media manager can't help you as much, you can always go to your local ASN. So obviously in Australia, that's Motorsport Australia. If you're competing in another country, in the Middle East, in the United Arab Emirates, where I run F4 UAE, the Motorsport manager at the local ASN has a huge distribution list, has a huge list of local newspapers and websites to be able to promote your story. So work with these people that are in those positions to be able to get your story out. They're the first people that you need to be building a relationship with. And then it's, you know, as you organize interviews, whether it's the local radio DJ, whether it's a newspaper, you know, for the Manly Daily, it doesn't matter who it is, get email addresses, build up your email list, start writing press releases, send press releases out before and after every event. Be in the forefront of all these journalists' mind. I was telling a story before that when I was at Auto Action, I used to get a press release from a young kid called Jonathan Bakeoff, who would run in the Fujitsu series. Jonathan never won a race, didn't get pole position. He would always finish, you know, 15th and back. But every Monday after a race meet, I would get his press release. It was professional, it was succinct, it wasn't opinionated, it was very factual. And I was always expecting it. I knew that he was the only competitor in the Fujitsu series back then that would send a press release out. So when I was doing a lot of profiling at Auto Action, we'd do like one-page driver profiles and we'd spread it across different categories. When I needed a Fujitsu series category, I went straight to Jonathan, because he was proactive and he was always being consistent with his media coverage. I mean, back then we didn't look at social media. I was in the dark ages of magazines when I first started. So it was just emailing or faxing press releases. But if you don't do these small little things, how are journalists going to remember you? So always reach out, get email addresses, start working with your local category, get advice on anyone that may be able to promote you, keep their details and start building a database. You know, I still get press releases to this day from my kids that have moved on from F4 and gone up the ranks. It's just really important to still send your information and your results out so we can keep an eye on you, because you never know, one day I might be in a position where I could actually assist you in F1 or in the WRC or the Dakar or something like that. No matter, you don't know where your life is going to go. So just keep building those databases step by step as you start meeting different journalists and radio DJs and commentators as well, TV commentators, track commentators, and go out of your way to build relationships, particularly with the track commentators. You know, I was talking to Wade Ornger, who does all speedway commentary in Oz, and if only he had more competitors go up to him with some information about him so they can talk about you during the actual event. Commentators are crying out for information. So just be proactive and start local, start with the people that are around you. And then, yeah, hopefully there'll be people that are in the categories that you're working with that can guide you that way.
And does that contact need to be in the form of a press release?
No, you can just have a conversation. You can even if you just go and say hi to that same journalist every weekend, remember their name. I can tell you now, a journalist will remember a racing driver that remembers their name every race weekend. Mm. Because you have gone out of your way to remember that journalist's name or that photographer's name. Now, talking about photography as well, you guys are capturing the most intimate moments of drivers at events, whether they're sitting in their car with their helmet on just before a race, you're celebrating on the podium, you're spraying champagne, you're capturing all these amazing moments of a racing driver while they're at work doing their job. If you saw a great photo and it was taken by Joe Smith, go up to Joe Smith saying, hey, I love that photo that you took of me on the podium. It'll make their day. They'll remember you. And if you just go out of your way to remember their names and thank them for their work, even if, you know, you haven't paid for the photo to use for yourself or you saw it in a magazine, just always be grateful for the coverage that you do get. Because like I said before, you know, Mark Webber still knows all the photographers back here in Australia that have taken photos of him throughout his whole career. And so it's just really nice to be able to build those relationships, because you never know when you might need some great profile shots, or you might need some photos of you competing in a previous category. You don't know where to go. I remember that photographer took photos of me back in 2010, but if you were rude to that photographer, why should they help you? You know, so if you're really nice to everyone, then you never know when you're going to need to rely on people to help you build your profile in the future. It's just really, it's common sense, really, just to be nice to people and be appreciative and supporting everybody else rather than having a chip on your shoulder. And don't worry, working with a lot of kids, I see kids with chips on their shoulders all the time in open wheelers.
So in regards to, in regards to social media, this is a good question that Michelle sent through, because I've wondered this myself. In terms of the different social media platforms, should you post the same content across the different platforms or different slightly?
You've got to think, each platform is different, right? So Instagram's very visual. Facebook is more, Facebook's like a pseudo website, like a more casual website, really. It's Facebook's where you want to put your results, post your press releases, stories from your website, have some photos. But then Instagram is just very visual. So you can post them the same, but one thing that a lot of people make the mistake with, let's just say you haven't got time to do different content on different platforms, and you need to do the same image or the same selection of photos or the same good morning post when you first get to the track. Please do not share the post on Instagram direct to Facebook. You have to post separately, because you never know when someone that you're tagging on Instagram and it goes on to Facebook. The one thing I hate is seeing on Facebook posts the little @ and then someone's Instagram handle. It doesn't relate. So what it shows is that you're lazy, that you haven't taken Instagram and Facebook as separate entities with separate ways to promote. And you can put 30 hashtags up on Instagram for your post, but I don't want to be seeing 30 hashtags on Facebook. You need to maybe have one hashtag for you as a competitor and the hashtag of the category that you're competing with, but really no more than that. You don't need to have a whole heap. And you've got to remember that if you're going to be tagging sponsors or tagging the category, there's different ways of tagging on both Instagram and Facebook. So sure, if you want to put the same content, that's fine, but post it twice, but make sure you've got your hashtags and your tagging formatted correctly for the platform. So it doesn't look like all you're doing is posting to Insta and then just sharing it across to Facebook automatically, because it just looks like you're not really paying attention to that quality. Because we notice it, don't worry, we notice it all the time when you do this for a living. But then if I can add to that, if you have a media manager, or if you have time to think of a media plan that you want to post different content on the different platforms, 100% you can do different things. It's completely your choice. It depends on how many resources that you have and how much time you've got as well to promote yourself. So there's no right or wrong answer, but just be mindful of respecting each platform for the way that they're set up.
Interesting. So Leanne's asked a question in regards to writing a press release. Now, is this, does she write it in the third person or write it as like in the first person? And also, is this something that you can help people with in writing press releases? Because I think there's an art to it, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. It's actually a short course I'm thinking of putting together on my online platform, and doing a few modules about how to write one. Yeah, it's really interesting when you travel around the world. People do press releases different ways. When I was in South Africa, people write press releases as opinion pieces. Now there is completely different, right? If you write an opinion piece about your weekend, that you had a great weekend and I was so proud of myself and I got my best results and blah, 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 that's like a blog, right? But a press release, whenever you see a press release, it's always written by somebody else. Even if you, as the racing driver, are writing your own press release, you have to say, ABC Motorsport's Filippa Guarna finished on the podium for the first time in 2020, whatever it is. And then if you want to say how great you were, or how exciting your weekend was, or how much you learned, put all that emotive stuff into the quotes. And that's how you separate it out. So yeah, press releases have to be very formal. They have to be very factual. And you've got to try and take emotion out of a press release from the text and keep the emotion in the quote, because you can't say that Filippa Guarna had an amazing results at Morgan Park. Amazing is an opinion. That's my opinion. People need to make up their own opinions about how good you are from reading that press release. You can't tell people how amazing you are. They have to decide for themselves. So try to take all of that amazing, spectacular, fantastic, all those emotive words that we use to describe every day, take them out of a press release, put them in your quote only, unless you wanted to do a blog post from the first person, from yourself, as like your weekend update, like Gary Rogers used to do at the end of a supercars weekend. He'd talk about how the race weekend used to go. That was from the first person. But press releases have always been official forms of communication. Because you've got to think, when press releases were really press releases many years ago when there wasn't all this social media. It was a way of providing the facts of what was going on at an event to news, to journalists, to the radio newsrooms, to the TV networks. You would send a video newsreel with it with some vision from what happened at the race weekend. But it was never emotive, because press releases are what news agencies or news websites or news TV take the facts and they turn that information into their own news story. So you don't want to have that fluff and bubble in there, because that's just, it's too emotive. You're never going to see, you know, the Channel 10 news at 5 o'clock being emotive with their stories. It's all about the facts of what's going on. So you do need to be mindful of that balance between where do I put the emotion, how excited do I get, and how do I structure it out. But you should also remember what I said before about interviews: who, what, why, when, where, how, right? That's the basis of every journalist writing stories. That also should be the basis of your first paragraph for a press release. I want to know in that first paragraph who did what, when, where, and how. The why bit you can put a bit later if you want, but I at least need to know what's going on. Like in South Africa, they would start their press releases like, it was a bright and sunny day and people were on the banks having a barbecue, and by the way, Michael Stephen won this GDC championship. No, I want to know that Audi's Michael Stephen won the GDC championship this weekend at Swartkops Raceway. That's it. Who, where, when, dates. You've got to be quite succinct, quite short with your sentences, and quite formal with press releases.
And is there a guide to how long those press releases are? Is it half a page? Is it a full page?
You really need to work out how much information you want to talk about. You know, you've got to give that first paragraph has to be the summary of what to expect in that press release. And then every paragraph after is providing a little bit more information about how the result came to be, whether there was any factors like the weather that was affecting the results, whether there was any rivalries or any championship changing moments that happened. So maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs of information, a couple of paragraphs of quotes. If you want to add a team manager quote in there, you can put that after that. And then maybe summarize where you are in the championship, when you're competing next, and maybe some championship points information in your website URL. That's pretty much a press release. Unless you're doing a category, like with me doing Formula 4, my press releases are quite long because I make sure I have to get every driver in those press releases, because I send one press release that goes global. So I need to make sure all of my kids have some sort of representation, but that's just a decision that we made as a category to do that. And we do sections. So I'll do the intro summary of what happened, a quote from the promoter or a quote from the driver that won the most amount of races. I'll do a qualifying summary and a race summary for each of our 4 races, and then a championship review. That's because I've got lots of drivers to deal with. But if you're one person and one competitor, a couple of paragraphs, tell us what happened. What did you learn? Put a couple of quotes in there if you want. Put another quote from your team manager to back you up about how your performance went or how you improved, where we can see you next, where you are in the championship, and your website URL or a Facebook link. And that's pretty much all you need to do. You don't want to waffle on too much, and don't have sentences that have got like 100 words. Make sure they're quite succinct, understand your grammar, and also be quite mindful of your English, because you don't want to put the wrong there, or it's, or two, and two. So if you're going to be sending press releases to the press or to sponsors, make sure that you've had all of that grammar check and fact checked and spelling checked as well before you send it out.
Okay, we might need that short course there, Filippa.
I'll let you know when I finish it. Yeah, but it is something that I do go through, you know, with my main as athlete coaching programs, is we do go through that separate, because you want to make sure, it depends on what your audience is, what category you're in, and who you're going to send the information to about how formal you can go with your press releases. So there is an art to it, but you've also got to take into consideration where you are at with your level of competition and who you're competing against, and what environment you're competing in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now there's a couple of questions here in regards to Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So one is about hashtags. So I guess from a media perspective in regards to hashtags, and stories, how effective stories are.
Yeah, really, really effective. It's important to firstly tag the category that you're competing in. And even if you're doing Instagram stories, Okay, so as a media manager of my category, I can't view all of my 15 drivers every single session about what they're posting on Instagram or posting in Instagram stories. If you tagged my category, F4UAE, I would get an alert that you've tagged me in an image. Then I would be, oh, that's a really cool image. It gets my attention, then I can choose to share it. Or if Instagram stories, I can share that immediately. So always tag the category that you're in, tag your sponsors, and then they get flagged as well, that they can share your content. And hashtags, get the hashtag right of the category that you're competing in. You can't just put hashtag supercars if the supercars hashtag is VASA or V8SC like it used to be. So make sure you're using the right hashtag for the category that you're in, because people do search hashtags and you can't have an alert for hashtag searching on Instagram now. And if you're constantly tagging and doing the hashtags of the category that you're in, if people are looking for the category itself, they'll see your post. So you've got more chance of being able to reach a wider audience. And then in regards to just general hashtags, look, it's really up to you about what hashtags you want to use. I look at the most popular hashtags for motorsport. So you can do hashtag motorsport, you can do hashtag supercars, you can do hashtag whatever car you're racing in, production cars. If you're a female, I would tag the FIA's Women in Motorsport Commission as well. It's always good to try, tagging in race chicks, because if you want to try and build up a network, then you want the most amount of people that are in your target market to see you. So there's no harm in tagging all those different accounts in your post. Don't go overboard, but it's enough to hashtag drive like a girl. Yes, exactly. That's a good one as well. Put that in the comments. So yeah, particularly if those hashtags are trending. So if hashtag drive like a girl is trending at the moment, and you can do lots of analytics on the internet about that. I won't go through that in detail, but if you do the same hashtag as well, then your post is going to come up with all the others that are trending with that hashtag. So then you'll be able to reach more people too. So stick to the basics. Have your set. So I always have one set of hashtags for Instagram as my general set. And then if I'm doing particular content, I'll put some unique hashtags at the bottom, or I'll do a hashtag for the different circuits that we're competing at or the different sponsors that we might have. But I always have one set of hashtags ready to go in my notes in my phone. So as I'm doing posts on the go, I just copy paste, add a couple of extras if I need to based on the quality or the type of post that you're doing, and then just and go from there. But yeah, it's always good to plan that and do some research about what's trending and where you think you might be able to be picked up from a search point of view, just to try to expand your reach. But don't forget to use the right hashtag and tag in the category. That's really the most important thing as well.
Any other Instagram tips?
Oh, lots. Please don't ever put a website URL or address in the caption. They do not work. I see a lot of the time people will put their race results in the caption of the photo at the end of the weekend, or read my story here, https://www. It's not going to work. If you want to direct people to a website, just change the website URL in your bio, in your profile, and say link to the story in the profile above, or read the profile to go to the website on your website, but don't ever put a URL in the caption, because you just can't click on it. Never put a photo up with no caption. I get that a lot with 15, 16-year-olds. They just like putting a photo up with nothing written there. But you've got to think, when you're posting content on social media, why are you doing it? Do you want to educate? Do you want to entertain? Do you want to inform? Do you want to engage? Have a reason. Doesn't matter whether it's a flashback photo or a motivational quote or whatever it is. Don't leave it blank. Put something in the caption and put your hashtags in and put your tagging in, so you can try to have a reason. And it looks like you've got a plan, or that you're thinking about what you're doing, because if you just post something willy-nilly, it looks like you're doing it haphazardly. So if you want to attract professional sponsors and big ticket sponsors, then you need to look like you're thinking about what you're posting, and there's a reason for what you're doing. But otherwise, look, keep it clean. One message per post. If you want to share content from your category, share it, don't steal it. I think that's one of the big things as well. I've experienced many teams in categories that I've done media management for, where they'll just rip the video or rip the photo and repost it on their page and don't tag it or anything. And that's stealing someone's IP. So it's always good to share, because if you've got to think, if you're a competitor and you post something that's really engaging, or a really cool video or a really cool photo or profile shot of you, and the category shares your content, they wouldn't steal your content, they would share it. So do the same courtesy back, because by sharing each other's content, you're actually linking all of those accounts and you're opening yourself to the fan base and the followership of the category, and the category to the competitor. So sharing is caring. So always just share. Don't steal it. What else? You don't need to put watermarks on your photos on Instagram. That's more of a Facebook thing. Try not to put too many logos and text and stuff on Instagram. Remember, Instagram's a visual means. You want to connect to people with beautiful imagery that's quite emotive. You don't want to make it sterile with lots of too much confliction. You know, one of my favorite quotes for media is, if you confuse, you lose. You will lose your audience. You will lose people if you add too much. Just keep it simple, because once we start, you know, using our brain cells to have to rethink and reread what we've just read, or have to think about what we're looking at, it's too hard. Keep it simple, keep it easy, and keep it light, and keep it engaging. Don't confuse people too much.
Okay.
And
Tanisha, I agree. Linktree is great. Mm-hmm. I use that. Yeah. I recommend Linktree.
Yeah, that's great, because then you can link to like your general website, you can to your Facebook, you can link to your sponsors, you can link to a latest press release if it's really important as well. You can link to the category you're competing in. So yeah, that's a very good idea.
Yeah, and it's free. It's good. So in regards to Facebook, Michelle's got a question there. Is it better to post videos direct to Facebook or share a YouTube link?
Well, it depends. Do you want to have a YouTube channel, or do you want to build that?
Michelle's got a YouTube channel.
Yeah, well, if you want to build followers and get unique hits, and you want to be able to have a popular YouTube channel, then yeah, absolutely post everything to YouTube and then just put the link onto Facebook. There's no point doing double dipping. It depends on how advanced you are with your career as well, and how much time you have. But if you want to focus on building a YouTube channel, I would focus on there first. I did see a comment before about Cass about crediting the photographer. Exactly. If you're using someone else's photo, don't say it's yours. Always tag them or put a photo credit at the bottom, because I think the creative industry is one of the least appreciated and least paid industries. People think, oh, taking a photo is just a click of a button. They don't understand that it's the framing, it's the lighting, it's being at the right place. And it's about walking around a circuit for 8-10 hours in all conditions to get that photo to make you look good. So the least that you could do is actually respect the photographer that's taken that photo and credit them, because you see the F1 drivers do it. You see all the professional sports people do it. So there's no reason why you can't do it, no matter what stage of racing, whether you're professional or you're amateur or you just like doing it on the weekends. Always credit the photographer, the photo that you're sharing.
Okay, now if we do end up in the media for the wrong reason, let's hope we never do.
Yeah.
How do we avoid a media crisis, or what do we do?
Well, obviously,
let's all ring Filippa.
No. I think it's important to always, like I said, all the things we talk about tonight, watch your behavior, watch your actions, watch the way you converse with people, be respectful. If you're going to act act professionally, act respectfully, act honestly, you don't have a reason to have a crisis. We do need to be concerned about maybe some of the language that we use. I think these day and ages, we get too relaxed in using coarse language or using words that might be a bit not PC these days. So that's where you may be getting into the headlines for the wrong reasons if you are a very well-known person. But hopefully that just by being the professional that you are, you know, being well behaved, being well dressed, you won't have to get in that crisis in the first place. It's a shame that people only come for media training after a crisis has happened so they can try to polish up their reputation. And it's a lot of work to be able to recover from that. If you do end up being at the wrong place at the wrong time or doing something that was an honest mistake, I think the first point of call is always being upfront and honest about it and say something about it publicly, if you've got to put something on your website or an apology on your Facebook, do it before anybody else does. Get on the front foot of it. If it's really that bad, then just apologize. Get on the front foot, say that you did the wrong thing, and it's something that you've learned from. I know it's the same old cliche, and you see it with the footy players all the time in the press, but hopefully you don't get in that scenario. I'm hoping that particularly women in the race checks community, you might have a word slip up or a post that might not be taken the right way, but if something is offensive, take it down straight away. If you need to apologize, and don't run away from it. If you're going to run away from your problems, the problem's going to keep chasing after you. I think some of the things that people might get in trouble for might be in regards to stealing content or taking TV programs and editing broadcast rights. Just always be respectful of content that other people have created, so you don't get into any legal hot water for taking stuff that's not yours. A friend of mine, Scott Yorston, owns SS Media, who does a lot of livery design work in supercars and Porsche Carrera Cup, and did Team Penske and Erebus. And he also does all of the car livery renders for the supercars website. Many times the images are on the website are taken to use for other promotional material or model cars and things like that, without realizing that they have to pay for that. Just because something is free on a website of your category doesn't mean that you can use it. So before you use something that's not yours, if you'd like to, always ask permission so you don't get into any legal hot water. But hopefully from the behavioral and action side, we know best about how to carry ourselves without having to do anything that's going to be taken in the wrong context.
Beautiful. All right. Well, that's all of the questions that I had and all of the questions that have come through. Has anyone else got some other questions for Filippa? Feel free to unmute if you're in a position that you're able to unmute, or feel free to pop them in the chat. But definitely my big takeaways out of tonight is build relationships, and that it was Linda put it, I guess, who do we suck up to? No, it's definitely about building. It's all about building relationships, having that media kit ready, but also having your own personal brand and knowing your story. I guess is the first thing. Separate Facebook and Instagram with your posts. Definitely no sunglasses, and don't rip off content.
Tanisha's put a question up. Is it essential to study media at uni to work in the industry? No, I never did. I learned on the job. I did start a Bachelor of Commerce degree at Sydney University, and within a month I walked into my first radio station. I thought, this is pretty cool. I like the media. And then I worked my way out of uni and worked my way into the media. But I think it's really important that if you do want to work in the media industry, and particularly with networking groups, Facebook groups, this race chicks community is really amazing. Everyone's got so much experience. Reach out. Because I never had a female mentor. I never had anyone to go to. I had a lot of male mentors still, people like Brett Murray that owns Speed Cafe, your Mark Fogarty's, your Paul Govers, your Peter McKay's, all of the big journalists that we've heard and read stories over the last 20, 30 years. They were all my mentors, and I learned from them because I asked and I wanted to learn and want to be proactive. So if you do want to work in the industry, then reach out to anyone you don't have to be a chick. You don't have to just reach out to me. You can reach out to anyone's work that you admire. When I was a radio DJ, I would reach out to the radio announcers I loved listening to, saying, I want to be a radio DJ. How can you help me? Where do I need to start? What do I need to do? How can I practice? Just be humble and just be honest and just be appreciative of the time that someone might be able to take to help you out. But don't be afraid to ask, because we like to pass our experience on. But no, you don't need to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of bucks at uni if you want to just, work in this industry. There's always a way and a means if you really wanted to do it and don't have the funds to go to uni, because I definitely didn't.
And yeah, Cass, feel free to ask your question, either pop it in or unmute.
Oh, that's my unmute button. So I guess the reason why I joined in on this chat is I'm not a driver, so I'm not trying to market myself or anything like that, but I currently work in marketing. I've always come from a photography background and all of those sorts of things. Like I mentioned earlier, I did a lot of work with supercars last year with some of the teams, teaching motorsports photography. I've been doing shooting ride days and those sorts of things this year.
Right.
What sort of advice would you give to someone who's looking, if they're already working within marketing and social media management and that sort of stuff, of pivoting to being able to work within the industry from more of a like marketing side of things and social media and those sorts of things?
You want to move into more of a media management type sort of role in pit lane?
Possibly. Definitely.
It still comes down to those relationships and getting to know people in the right place. It is quite daunting when you've got a big pit lane with all the different teams. Share your work, let people know what you can do. And even if you don't have experience, to say you want to be a social media manager of a racing team, right? You may not be able to apply for that straight away because you may not have the experience. You may not be able to get straight into the door on the first go. You may need to get the industry experience outside motorsport and then come back in when you've got the experience. I started in music. I started back announcing Britney Spears and AC/DC. It has nothing to do with motorsport. I wanted to be a radio DJ, but I started answering phones on the community switchboard. Back then, we didn't even have the internet. If you wanted to know when the bridal show was on or what was that nappy commercial I just heard 5 minutes ago, you called the comm switch, and I was the chick answering the phone. But I had my foot in the door, right? And I was meeting the radio announcers, I was meeting the program directors, I was getting a feel for what was going on in that radio station. My next job was digitizing the commercials into a computer for the DJs to play. I used to get them on reel-to-reel tapes and cassettes and all sorts of stuff. That wasn't DJing either, but it got me into a studio so I could learn the technical equipment, how to record, how to use faders, how to mix. Then I had the equipment to do a demo, and the demo then that I made from that experience, I sent out, and then I got my first radio DJ job. I went to be a radio DJ, and I'd never been a radio DJ in my life, but I made a demo. So sometimes you need to do work that's outside where you want to be to get the experience, to get to know the right people, and to get access to information to be able to create a portfolio, or to create dummy websites, or to create, or apply that information to your own social media pages, going, look, this is what you want to do professionally. This is what you've done for other people. This is what you've done for yourself. And if people can see tangible results about that particular work, they are more likely to then hire you for the examples that they see than you just applying it coming from a photographer point of view. It's the same thing if you want to be a commentator. I say record the supercars broadcast, or record any race or local race or whatever it is. Record your own commentary. Do a demo tape. Give someone in position of making the decision to employ you or not to employ you a sample of what you can do. But there's no real easy way to get in. It's just finding any opportunity in the environment that you want to work in and work your way. And also be accepting of the fact that you may never get there. I always wanted to be a pit lane reporter. And I was told even though I was doing Aussie racing cars reporting and I was doing tele hosting for that, I was told that I would have more longevity to be a producer than to be a chick on telly. So I just had to come to the conclusion that I'm just always going to be this woman that's got big hips, and I'm not going to be a size 4, and I'm not going to be, the typical quintessential pit lane reporter, because I didn't fit the niche, or there wasn't the position available, and it still has never even come up a position for me to ever do that. So I've got to find another way to still be involved in the industry and still be able to work passionately in it, even if it's not what I had originally intended. But I'm not negative or upset about not being a pit lane reporter, because now I'm a TV director and doing content all around the world. So there's always going to be give and take. So just take every opportunity as it comes. But yeah, try and create some portfolios, people to see your work, and hopefully that will alert people to the quality of content that you can create.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And I think too, Cass, also look at your your grassroots categories as well, whether it's, like sports sedans or improved production and things like that. There is so many categories that, like, even if it's like volunteer work, they would welcome you with open arms to have somebody do that. They're even, they've now, generally say like there's the National Sports Sedans Association or New South Wales Sports Sedans, like it's its own car club now. They'd be like, yes, please come and help, and then, and use those lower levels grassroots categories to help build your profile and to, show what you can do and showcase what you can do there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes that can even become your niche as well. I know someone that has done a lot of media for the grassroots races, and then they went off and did motorsport coordinator work for a big manufacturer, and they realized that they were more passionate and they got more enjoyment from their work of doing press releases and driver management of people that were just racing in Victoria and New South Wales. Then they created a niche because they cared about it. So if you can create a niche that's a strong point for you and you're doing something different to everybody else, then you can actually make a real big success of yourself out of that. So don't knock any of those opportunities that do come your way.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm currently doing media and marketing for a sports club and a soccer team at the moment. So,
right.
Looking for all those different opportunities, even though it's not necessarily exactly where I want to be long term, but
it's still teaching you the skills. It's teaching you the content planning and the marketing plans and how to be able to look at product and brand and promoting and building relationships with the press and sponsors and commercial partners. So all of that is vital. It might not be in the environment that you want to do now, but you're building the skill set up that will help you down the track, 100%.
Mm-hmm. And you got to remember too, I think that over 90% of motorsport in Australia is amateur.
Absolutely.
It's only that top, that top few percent that, that you can call professional, drivers and professional categories. It's, it's generally all 90% of it is all amateur and run by volunteers, a lot of it. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, and most of the time the grassroots races always miss out on content, on exposure, on assistance. So they'll be probably even more appreciative of the help.
Yeah. And there's a couple of comments in there for you too, Cass. So Queensland Rally Championship doesn't have a media manager there, so have a chat with Michelle. And what was it? The GT, Australian GT. Now that's being promoted as well.
Yeah, awesome.
It'd be awesome series, the Australian GTs.
Awesome.
Can I answer a question that I had before? There's one from Amy saying, how do you approach connecting with commentators at a track? That's a really good question. Follow them on social media, engage with them, find their email address, say hello. Or if you can't find them at the track, get the media manager or someone in the category to go find them for you or take you to them. Always say hello. They would love to get to know you. And just comes down to what we said before, be proactive, go build those relationships. I had one of my drivers a number of years ago added me on Facebook and Instagram before I even met them when they arrived in the United Arab Emirates. But they were the only driver in that whole season that actually connected with me and sent me a message prior saying, I can't wait to race in F4 UAE. So who do you think was the first driver I went to say hello to when I went to the first round? That driver. So social media, if they've got a public profile or an Instagram account, just send them a message, tag them in posts, reach out, just say hi, that you're competing in that category. Love to send some information. What's your email address? Can I come in and catch up with you at the track just for a couple of minutes between a session? Love to know more about you. They want more content. If there's a safety car or there's a red flag or it's quiet time between sessions, they want to talk about stuff. So if you don't give your information, they'll talk about somebody else.
Very good. All right. Has anyone else got some questions for Filippa? I think that's all the ones that have come through at the moment. So what else people are thinking their last question there, Filippa, you have a special discount for Race Chicks in the group for your coaching sessions?
Yeah, look, I normally just do like 6-week programs for younger athletes or professional athletes, or I do like a 2-part program for young karters. So while I do focus on the big stuff, I'm more than happy to do just one-on-one sessions, whether it's an hour here or an hour there, to help with fine-tuning your photos for social media or setting up your Facebook and Instagram accounts. So for all of that, I'll just give a 25% discount to my hourly rate to be able to help you out. So no committal to do programs or anything, but if there's something specific that you want help with or press release writing, I can teach you some structure in that sort of stuff. Reach out to me and I'll give a 25% discount for anything that I can help you with.
That's fantastic.
And you can also, look, you can even also jump on my website and book like an intro chat. So I'm more than happy to spend half an hour on the phone with you, or a Zoom video call. So if you know, I want to make sure that I can teach you the right skills as well. I'm not going to be able to, I don't want to set up a coaching session if I don't think I can provide value, or if I can actually fine tune the guidance for you. So I'm more than happy to chat with anyone beforehand about what your needs are, where you want to go. And if I can help you, then I'll plan something in the future with you.
Excellent. And so your LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, Media Master Coach. Sorry, I just said it the wrong way around.
MediaMasterCoach.com, and Instagram and Facebook is Media Master Coach, is where you can find me.
Perfect. All right. Any last questions for Filippa? No, well, Filippa's in the group, so if you've got any questions at all, feel free to pop them in there, and yeah, and Filippa will be able to help you there. But thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Nice to meet our new race chicks to the group. Great to see you there, and I hope everyone has enjoyed tonight. I definitely have, and be signing up for the press release short course.
And I've actually created this PDF that's like 30 pages long of lots of different tips and things to remember. So if you haven't remembered everything from our chat tonight, then have a bit of a read for that when Rochelle sends it out in the next week or so, and then you can reach me. My contact details are on there as well. Okay.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you in the group, and see you at the next live Q&A in February next year. All right. Thanks, everyone.